Hello everyone, today in this video we will fight against the advanced character of our world around us, and this time we will talk about something else than ongoing events, because from time to time, I think we all agree, one needs to get some distraction from the world around us, the closest one to us, and focus on something else that gives us pleasure and joy at the same time, and also some knowledge. So I would like to recommend to you good books on the Hellenistic period and Ptolemaic Egypt. The followers of my channel, I think they know that the Hellenistic period, so the period that started from the conquest of Alexander the Great and formally ended with the incorporation of Ptolemaic Egypt into the Roman state, actually the Roman Empire, which was nascent in this time, which was to be finally formed 3 years later in 27 BC, when Augustus formally took entire power over the Roman state. And this period is full of the brutal conflicts between Greek states. Later Rome comes into play. In the east, of course, Parthians come into play. Other nations, Bactrian, quite isolated Hellenistic period. In the east, Bactrian, Greco-Bactrian states, fights with Indian states, conquers middle and northern India. Indo-Greek states are being formed. A very, very interesting period involving many nations, cultures, and having a set of events interconnected with each other that took place on the great area from the territory of modern India till territories of practically Gibraltar and so end of the European continent, because Greek culture and connections, diplomatic connections between the Hellenistic states actually went far, far beyond their geographical range. And we know that the Greek culture was flourishing also outside the territories of Hellenistic monarchies that were formed by the successors of Alexander the Great, so-called Diadochi, his former commanders. And for instance, we see a huge influence of the Hellenistic religion and art and other forms of human activity into the civilization of Carthage and other civilizations of the Western Mediterranean those days, including Etruscans. And this is very great period. And now, what's worth reading about it? If one reads English, of course, there are fundamental works like the book From Alexander to Actium, almost 1000 page thick volume about Hellenistic period by Peter Green. One should read it together, in my opinion, one should read it together, in my opinion, with his biography of Alexander of Macedon, because this is, in my view, one huge series of books that one should read together. There are also other authors who specialized more in the more specialistic areas of Hellenistic period, like Ptolemaic Egypt. So the books that I can recommend are the books of Mr. Manning and English translation of the book of Austrian historian Mr. Goebel. So the first book has title The Last Pharaohs by Mr. Manning, and the second one was published under the title The Ptolemaic Empire. About the Seleucid Empire, we have great trilogy produced in the recent 5-6 years consequently published volumes by Mr. Granger, published by Pen and Sword, about the history of Seleucid Empire. Now he is producing first volume already produced, about the history of Seleucid counterparts, so Ptolemies. I hope that despite his age, he is over 80, he will just make it and published two remaining volumes about the Ptolemaic dynasty and their state they were ruling over. There are also some other books in other languages one should look at to have comparison, because not everything what was written, surprisingly, even I'm saying it, not everything what was written in the Eastern Bloc like Soviet Union is bad. So there is a book available in Russian, Polish, and most likely in German, Hellenism, by a Soviet historian from the first half of 20th century, Mr. Abraham Ranovich. A very good synthesis of Hellenism. There is of course classical old book originally published in 1929 by Mr. William Wardrop Tarn, The Hellenistic Civilization. Great synthesis and overview of Hellenistic civilization, free of any political correctnesses that sometimes one can find in the newest publications about this period. Mr. Green, of course, and his works is also fine. And of course, there is a great book about the Hellenistic science. I mentioned from time to time on my channel and also in my reviews, The Forgotten Revolution by Italian mathematician, physicist and historian at this in one person, Mr. Lucio Rousseau. And this is a great book giving new perspective on the science in the Hellenistic period, its great development and later decline in the second half of the 2nd century BC, and also Mr. Rousseau offers his own explanation of this rapid development of Hellenistic science and later its relatively rapid decline. But this book is great complement to these all scientific and popular books about the Hellenistic period that belongs to one of my favorite historical periods. It's a great compliment to the knowledge about this incredible period in human history, that when we read all of these books together and think about it, what we read, and try to make more systematic view in our minds, then we see the incredible complexity and great human progress that was made during this period. There are also some other more specialistic books, like recently published work of Mr. Jostono about the Ptolemaic army in Ptolemaic Egypt in the 3rd century BC, how the army was organized, how the recruits were taken, how the veterans were awarded by the states, and how it really worked in practice. And recently there was a very nice book translated from French into English, PhD of one Belgian guy, Jean Duplessis, published this year, still this year 2022, about the Seleucid army during the times of Antiochus the Great. Really good book. I'm really happy that recently we observed some increase in the good publications that are being published about this incredible period, including some more specialistic ones, like the one of this Belgian guy, Mr. Duplessis, I mentioned. So there is a lot to read. I recommend it. Reading these books will change our views about our past, about our ancestors, and about ourselves. Because if they achieve it, we also can. We can make our knowledge broaden, and our world we live in much better place without any stupid ideologies. Only by using in a proper way science, our brains, and our hard work, which has to be directed well, and thanks to this, I really believe if we do this, we can live in a much better and much more functional and friendly world. All the best, have a nice day, bye.